Now, after the high demand from part 1 of Asta and Noelle's Unrequited Love, we believed we should continue it on.
Why you always lying?
Especially with the response from you guys. So in part 1 we sort of introduced the idea of this ship, as we explained the basics and fundamentals of Noelle being a part of a one-sided love affair, which is pretty typical of any shonen franchise. Even My Hero Academia has taken notes from this cliche outline with Deku and Irorika. But previously in part 1 we only extended our knowledge of their relationship from chapter 1 to 90. However, in this video we will finally break the ice and go into the manga territory, so there will be mild spoilers here and there. So don't complain in the comments because I did warn you guys. Okay, we've done enough waffling, so prepare yourself as we'll be going balls deep into the developing relationship of Asta and Noelle. With that, let's cue the intro.
You don't neck, bro.
So far, we all clearly understand that the Black Clover anime does not do the manga any justice at all. Just from a quick glance, even a simpleton can tell that the manga truly dominates Black Clover in the terms of storytelling. Nevertheless, we notice the anime is slowly picking up. Anyways, our mission here is to clarify Noelle's feelings for Asta and vice versa by analyzing the manga chapters one by one. So our first case comes in chapter 94. Whilst Mars goes through his own challenges of bringing his childhood friend Fana back to sanity, well, we all love a bit of side character backstory, because if you don't remember, is that Mars was the person that Yuno and Asta had battled against in the abandoned dungeon, thus being their first proper challenge as a magic knight. Although since then we didn't get much on Mars, it seemed as though that Yuki Tabata used this chance to show the fandoms another little glimpse of Noelle's one-sided love for Asta. During the bout between Mars and his childhood friend Fana, he managed to bring her back to her senses with love and affection, which casually somehow works against any overpowered character. Moving on, when they both made up, it gave the mangaka the chance to exploit Noelle's shyness around Asta, as Finwell was crying his eyes out due to the amount of affection Mars and Fana showed each other. The classic cliche lines were used as such, "Let's be together forever," and all sorts of cringy shit. Amidst all of this, Finwell was having a one-sided argument about childhood friends until Asta casually says he has many childhood friends, which was put into a more comedic way, with Noelle supposedly believing they all may be girls. Now moving up ahead, in chapter 98 we see another subtle hint of how much Noelle relies on Asta, particularly in the direst situations. Even though before, in the earlier chapters of the manga, Noelle always deemed herself superior than Asta, the character development Yuki Tabata had provided with Noelle is quite immense, but was also quite predictable, because that's what happens to all tsunderes that are involved in a shonen series. Regardless, when Black Asta was approaching Ladros in such an intimidating atmosphere, most of his allies believed he would have no mercy on Ladros and execute him cold-bloodedly. To be honest, even I did, but because Asta is who he is, he was never consumed fully by the demon, so his personality was still intact, pervading through the odds. He even lightened up the mood by being typical Asta. And in chapter 98, it shows Noelle with such a relieved face, like she was expecting Asta to return to who he usually is, allowing us, the reader, to recognize that Asta and Noelle are basically the Bonnie and Clyde of the Black Clover series. Okay, the next panel we have here in chapter 134 is when Asta and Noelle meets Yuno, and when Yuno declares his intent to become the Magic Emperor, Asta then responds like he usually does with his outward challenge, saying, "Not a chance, it's gonna be me," obviously with his most annoying accent as seen in the anime. Most of you guys might have not noticed, but we see Noelle actually get defensive on Asta's behalf. She even goes to call out Yuno, saying, "How dare you say that, all cocky and smug like that?" And knowing Noelle, this type of attitude isn't a big deal considering where she was raised from, along with the fact her siblings are very pretentious. So why does Noelle get annoyed and snaps back at Yuno? Well, it seems it comes from her innate disposition, her reaction to defend her man. Her admiration for Asta shows over here and she doesn't even notice, and Noelle, being a tsundere wouldn't want anyone but herself to have a go at Asta. But now let's look at another sign Noelle shows for Asta, which is jealousy. This is one of the symptoms of catching feelings, whether it be in real life or in a manga. We as well have all probably felt this feeling before. In chapter 190, when Sally teams up with the Black Bulls, she is given some of Asta's clothes to wear. This makes Noelle super jealous and annoyed, and when Sally continues to touch up Asta saying how he offered his body to her, this makes Noelle so mad and shy at the same time. Noelle is so pissed off in contrast to Mimosa's shy reaction. But this ain't the only time Noelle showed her jealousy, as when we go back a bit to chapter 102, where we can see another case of Noelle having green eyes. At this time, the Star Award Festival is taking place in the capital, where Asta and Noelle come across some familiar faces who were none other than Hiato and Kahono, who I probably butchered their names, but at this point, who cares? A little bit of context is that during the Temple Battle Royale arc, it seemed as though Hiato caught feelings for Noelle and Kahono caught feelings for Asta. Trust me, this has become some sort of love hexagon if you count Asta's harem we discussed in part 1.
So even if Asta personally shuts his options down due to his love for Sister Lily, it won't stop others falling in love with him. In fact, it can play the opposite effect.
Oh yeah, and Sister Lily. Seems like Yuki Tabata can't get enough of the fan service. This anime could probably get away with an ecchi tag the way it's going. Anyways, Kahano then suggests a double date during their time at this festival, leaving both Asta and Noelle flustered and perplexed from her suggestion.
Now, the double date was definitely questionable because in the beginning of chapter 103, Asta didn't even know what the hell a double date was. Like, fam, seriously? Then you have Noelle having a panic attack on how to approach this double date. The whole thing was a shamble because Yuki Tabata broke all sorts of barriers as Kahono linked arms with Asta, causing Noelle's raging temperature to rise. And we all know how women can be like when they are angry.
Respect women.
Asta, Noelle, Kaito and Kahono do all sorts from playing fairground games to eating ice cream, but then Noelle starts to question her one-sided love for Asta, but perceiving that Asta and Kahano look like a perfect couple. That is until Kahano asks her the question that we all have been curious about, which is what is Noelle to Asta? But what really unites Asta and Noelle together is their similar instincts as they did when they found a lost child, and both of them simultaneously approach them to console the child, exemplifying the relationship they both have with each other, as though a thread is connected to both of them. But what truly breaks the ice is when Asta states he likes Noelle but in the form of a friend. We briefly explained this in part 1, but it plays a major part to Noelle's one-sided love affair, as it shows Asta is still hung up on Sister Lily. But one thing we rarely see within a shonen anime is that it's usually rare for the protagonist to keep complimenting his love interest's power, because the protagonist often always stays on their own path to power, disregarding the improvements of their peers around them. However, this is not the case with Asta. He is actually quite intelligent and gets onto things very fast. He's a true team leader due to him always encouraging his team members and having that fascination in magic, similar to how the Magic King stays wanderlusted. But who knows, it could be a fetish of Asta always praising others' abilities. However, he does it much often with Noelle rather than any other character. This also stems the strength for Noelle as well, as she doesn't simply ignore Asta's compliments about her. She actually takes them into consideration whenever she fights and wants him to recognize that she is a very powerful magic knight. You know, they were meant for each other once they start progressing each other as characters. That's pretty much what everyone looks in a soulmate. They motivate each other and strive to become the strongest. That side of Asta has really worn off on Noelle. Her thinking has also changed a lot around Asta due to her being obsessed to prove her siblings wrong, but now she wants to genuinely become strong solely to protect her nakama. This is pretty obvious as we all notice that Noelle now sides with Asta no matter what the situation may be, from being a tsundere to becoming Asta's #1 fan, but she still hasn't really acknowledged it properly yet. While she still does things on instinct for Asta and sometimes doesn't realize the extent she's doing it at. That's love for you, I guess. It makes you do the stupidest shit, and that's something Yuki Tabata wanted to implement within his works. He has made their relationship the most realistic, to be fair, even though it began on a bad note, as love takes time for it to kick in, and also Asta being a chick magnet. Like seriously, I reckon every single girl in the Black Clover universe has a thing for him. But regardless, this ongoing love affair could come up with its twists and turns. Like look at Naruto for example. We all thought he would end up with Sakura, but Kishimoto did a U-turn and paired him with Hinata. Maybe the same thing could happen with Asta, where he could end up with Mimosa. You never know. Anyway guys, let me know what's your thought in the comment section below. Who do you think Asta will end up with? Because their love for each other is still at its early stages. We could make a possible part 3 if any saucier stuff comes out from the manga, but as always, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. Follow us on all our social media platforms and we'll see you guys on the
Wait! Now I know I'm just the editor and I'm not supposed to have an opinion, but I have something to say! And no, it's not subscribe to my channel, but I mean, hey, if you wanna. Not that you would, but if you were to ask me, I would tell you the anime gets way too much hate. It's not that bad. If it were really a failure of an adaptation, would it ever try to look good? No, and yet we have moments that far surpass the manga. Now most of you are probably gonna chalk this up to me having awful taste, and you're really not wrong in doing so, but the Black Clover anime, flaws and all, actually got me back into anime. At a time when anime could no longer excite me in the long run, Black Clover showed up and revived my interest. It's also worth noting that I had already read the first couple manga volumes by the time the anime premiered, so I had already experienced the alleged superior version of the story. As a matter of fact, there was never a point where I wasn't ahead of the anime. And yet every Tuesday morning, I got up and I watched that show like a kid watching cartoons. And that's because Black Clover literally made me feel like a kid again. I felt like I had just experienced Naruto for the first time and was opened up to this cool new world. It wasn't groundbreaking and it still isn't, but I would urge you to give it a shot if you haven't tried it, and if you have and didn't care for it, I would still recommend giving it another try because it's so worth it. Anyway, I've overstayed my welcome, so thank you so much for watching, and
we'll see you guys on the next one.